Charles Leclerc is the unluckiest driver when it comes to racing at his home Grand Prix. He's had multiple DNFs, and the one time he did finish at Monaco, he turned into a bit of a disaster class. However, the Ferrari driver's ready to put those failures behind him and focus on the future. But will the ghost of Monaco continue to haunt him? Well, let's dive right in and discuss. First up, Charles Leclerc's Monaco curse might never go away. It's honestly baffling how Leclerc's gone this long without having a decent outing at Monaco. Like, the guy grew up there and knows those streets like the back of his hand. Plus, everyone seems to love him over there, as he's their local boy. After all, it's not very often we get an actual Monegasque racing in Formula One. But even in his debut season with Alfa Romeo, Charles suffered a brake failure and went bundling through the Nouvelle chicane. And let's not even talk about last year when he got pole position in quali, but had a gearbox issue right before the start of the race. Seriously though, there's gotta be some black magic or something involved here, because it's wild to think that someone can go 4 years without finishing their home Grand Prix. Of course, this year was a different story, as he did kind of finish in the rain, even though the race was absolutely horrendous for him. We mean, imagine starting P1 and not even getting on the podium, especially on a track like Monaco where it's almost impossible to overtake. Like, ouch dude, that one's gotta hurt. Also, if you look at it from a certain angle, he still didn't finish a full race distance, as it was cut short due to red flags and all that. So, knowing his luck, he probably wouldn't have seen the checkered flag anyway if the race didn't end sooner. Obviously, it wasn't really Leclerc's fault for whatever went down, but the thing is, it's never been his fault. It's just that something always seems to happen to him whenever he rolls around in Monte Carlo. And we're not the superstitious types here, but the dude's definitely gotta get some protection spells cast on him. Next, Leclerc's not bothered by his Monaco mishaps. Now, Formula One can be a bit of a romantic sport at times, as it's all about legacy and glory, so no one really wants to associate themselves with something as negative as a quote-unquote curse. At the end of the day, though, it's all business, and F1 drivers know that too. Yes, there's always going to be that feeling at the back of your mind when something goes wrong, but these drivers aren't new to this phenomenon. They've been racing ever since they were little kids, and this is all they've ever known. And guess at some point, you get used to the whole shtick, and it gets easier to move on. Thankfully, this seems to be the case for Charles Leclerc as well. The Ferrari driver expressed his disappointment over not being able to show off his ability in front of the home crowd. However, when asked whether the pressure of racing on the streets of Monte Carlo was getting to him, the Ferrari driver swiftly declined. According to him, racing on the roads he used to walk around as a child is a dream come true. And even though he hasn't had the best of luck here, he's still grateful to be able to do what he does. Plus, despite having a special attachment to the track and everything, it's still 25 points, so things aren't that different in the grand scheme of things. And if there's any consolation for Leclerc, it's that at least he only finished one place below, keeping the reigning champion within his reach. If he does want to get back to the top of the driver's standings though, he needs to get back on it as soon as possible. Obviously, it's easier said than done, especially when the next race is at Baku, which is another one of those tracks where he's had some bad luck in the past. And now, Leclerc aiming for redemption at Baku. Baku's easily one of the most exciting tracks on the F1 calendar. It's extremely long, straight, and 90-degree turns don't sound that great on paper, but we've had some of the best races of the past few years here. Like, "thank you, Baku" isn't a phrase that popped out of nowhere. For Charles Leclerc, though, the Azerbaijan Grand Prix is like Monaco light in that, yes, he's finished races here, but he's had some pretty bad misfortune here too. For instance, that crash at Castle Chicane and him saying, "I am stupid," will live in every F1 fan's memory for years to come. And obviously, we wouldn't have gotten all those great races without top teams fumbling the bag so hard at the track. This year, however, the energy is a bit different. For the first time in his career, the Monegasque is coming into the race feeling as confident as he's ever been. After all, you could say that Ferrari is the fastest car on the grid right now. Yes, the Red Bulls are faster on the straights, but Leclerc's the master of qualifying. So far this season, he's sitting at the top in terms of pole positions and continues to dominate those rankings. The only caveat, though, is that he's failing to convert those poles into race wins. Now, you could blame Ferrari's strategy or the drag on their car. Whatever it is, they've got to close the gap to Red Bull, and this is the perfect opportunity for it. Both Leclerc and Verstappen have unfinished business here, as it's not been the luckiest of tracks for them. Plus, keeping in view the way this season's going, you can bet that they'll be on the front row of the grid come Sunday. So, on the run-up to Turn 1, it's all going to be a battle of the wits. Let's just hope we get some proper racing between the two, and not some random anticlimactic crash, because that's what Formula One MOAN is all about. Next, in other related news, Hamilton urges drivers to speak up against FIA president's comments. Over the past few years, we've seen Formula One drivers getting more involved in social justice narratives, and for good reason too, since they're role models for a lot of people, and using their platform to promote these good causes is never a bad thing. For instance, Sebastian Vettel's currently raising awareness about climate change. Plus, Lewis Hamilton's been speaking out about racial injustice in sport, and the world in general too. According to the FIA president Ben Sulayem, though, these drivers are quote-unquote too political. In fact, he even went as far as to compare them to the likes of Niki Lauda and Alain Prost, saying that those drivers were only interested in driving back in the day. And now, as a response, Hamilton's clapped back by saying that he's not going to back down because of the FIA president's comments. The seven-time champion also said that he's proud of the work he's done and urged the other drivers to rebel against the FIA too. Now, whether anyone other than Vettel or Norris speaks up as well remains to be seen. And now, Verstappen weighs in on driver salary cap talks. Ever since Liberty Media have taken control of Formula One, they've been trying to make the sport more sustainable than it is. This included bringing new budget caps for the teams so they don't overspend. Plus, this would also keep the sport competitive, as the gap between big and small teams has closed down considerably. With that said, one area that Liberty Media hasn't touched so far is the driver salaries. Like, there's no cap on how much the teams can pay their drivers, which has resulted in some really expensive contracts, especially those involving the cream of the crop. For instance, Max Verstappen signed a 5-year contract extension with Red Bull recently that's reportedly worth over £40 million. And now, talks have erupted about whether we should have a cap on these skyrocketing driver salaries as well. According to Max Verstappen, though, the idea of a salary cap is a bit ridiculous. Speaking to the press at Baku, the reigning champ said that it's the drivers who put their lives on the line for everyone's entertainment, and they're the stars of the show, so it doesn't make sense to cut their resources down, especially when F1 is getting more popular than ever. Finally, Spa planning to wow F1 by modernizing the Belgian Grand Prix. Spa-Francorchamps is one of the most iconic tracks in Formula One. After all, it's been around since the 50s. Plus, the track's unique layout, especially with Eau Rouge going into a straight, makes it one of the most exciting races of the year. Despite its great racing potential, though, the track is at risk of losing its right to hold F1 races as Liberty Media shifts its priority to more advertiser-friendly tracks. Now, Spa isn't Miami by any stretch of the imagination, which is F1's current idea of an ideal race weekend with its parties and events. So, to make sure that it can continue to host F1 races in the future, Spa Grand Prix commercial director has laid out plans to incorporate exclusive events, fan zones, and DJs, kind of like the American tracks. Of course, there's the whole issue with the Belgian government trying to curb climate change too, not to mention the whole flooding situation at last year's race. So, the Spa management's definitely got their hands full. That's a wrap for this video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.